Yes, that's right. It's Joe here, live for Joyrider TV, back with some more Q&A. Yes, I'm back in the Joyrider TV studio here in Vasiliki, Lefkas, Greece, back from the first leg of this year's world tour, which was a coaching week in Egypt. Very good, excellent wind, and yes, there will be some videos coming from there as well. But back with the Q&A, where I'm going to be answering your most challenging catamaran sailing questions, and we're just going to be spending the next hour or so talking about catamaran sailing, because what better subject is there to talk about right now? None. Okay, so I'm going to jump in with the first preloaded question, and this one comes from Tim, no stranger to these events. Tim, sailing on Lake Jordan, North Carolina, USA, Hobie 16. And yeah, Tim's been out for quite a few epic sails in some good breeze. And he's putting some good speeds on the speed stick as well, actually. And he says, how do I go slower downwind? Okay, I can pull the sail in closer, but I get to the wind higher, and there's a higher chance of a crash jibe. It requires over the top focus, tweaking the angle all the time. Much easier to go slowly upwind. Yeah, that is just the way that it is on your upwind sailing. So if we're going up here, wind coming down here, it is extremely easy to control your speed to slow the boat down. On this upwind point of sail, this is going to sound obvious to those of you who know, perhaps less to those of you who don't. But the two ways of really keeping your speed in check: number one, let the sails out, boat's going to slow down. And number two, turn up towards the wind. Why does turning up towards the wind slow you down? Because it actually has exactly the same effect as letting the sails out. So if we have a sail, this is our sail on the boat. So the more that the sail is in straight in line with the wind coming straight down there, the less power we're going to have. So if it's sheeted in, we're going to have more power. So when we turn the boat up into the wind, let's say that the sail is in line like that, turn the boat up into the wind and the sail is in line with the wind more. Granted, if you turn all the way up into the wind, you are actually going to stop and start getting blown backwards. But, you know, that's just one of those things. But what about on the downwind? Yeah, so as we know, that when we're sailing downwind, to be most efficient, and this is on most boats sailing with two sails, with a main and a jib, which is what we're going to talk about right now. Sailing a boat with two sails, what we're looking to do, just looking for my arrows, they're up here, it's all right, panic over. What we are looking to do is to get the apparent wind, and the apparent wind is the combination, of course, of the true wind and the induced wind that we create by going forwards. So we're creating our own induced wind here, and what we actually end up sailing on is the apparent wind, and we're looking to have that on 90 degrees straight across the boat. In fact, one of the things that was quite interesting from my coaching week is it's not as easy as I think it is to get the apparent wind absolutely perfectly on 90 degrees and keep it there. I think the thing with downwind sailing with this apparent wind angle, sorry, so your apparent wind, how would you know? because we've got the bridle wires, and what we're going to do is sail with wind indicators on the bridle wires, which are being made from videotape is the best, or what you could use is like this. This is a piece of spinnaker cloth cut into a strip. This is nicer than videotape, let's face it, but videotape is more available most of the time. So yeah, so we're keeping that apparent wind flying across the boat. The other thing you could have is, and this is actually what the guys had on the boat in Egypt, was in fact the very same. We called it Davis because it says Davis on it, and it was a slightly different style mounting of wind indicator arrow, but we did find Davis quite useful, because if you're sitting on the boat and you see Davis here is totally, you're seeing the flat side of it like that, that means that yes, you are keeping your apparent wind going across the boat at 90 degrees. Whereas if you're looking at your tapes, yes, it's still perfectly doable, but you really have to gauge the difference. So if we're looking at this from sitting here looking forwards, so little bit more tricky to see the difference. So if it goes forwards like that, means you're too far downwind, so you need to head up. So too far downwind, need to head up to keep that flying across on 90 degrees. Then if it comes back towards you, then that means that we're then sailing too far upwind, so we need to come down a little bit there. Okay, I'm just going to jump in here and say thanks very much to Cucks Oliver with the first super sticker of the session. There's a super sticker initiative running throughout this live Q&A, and what the super sticker initiative is doing is it is allowing this session to be broadcast and afterwards as well, with no advertising on it to interrupt with this good information which is coming your way. So if you want to support the Q&A, just whack the button next to the chat button. It looks like a dollar bill, and just chuck in a super sticker. Much appreciated. All of the proceeds go into the maintenance and future of Joyrider TV. Thank you very much. And thanks very much to Scott dropping it in the slot with a super sticker. Okay, the super stickers do take us off topic for a second, but let's not worry. So back to, thank you very much, Scott. Thank you, Oliver. Back to the point here. Our normal catamaran sailing downwind angle is keeping the tapes flying straight across the boat at 90 degrees. Thanks very much, Bernhard, for the super sticker. Also keeping the Q&A ad free. So how can we depower if we are keeping, let's say it's windy, the sort of wind where we were definitely flying a hull upwind, and on the downwind, it's feeling kind of like the boat is going fast and it feels like we could be digging the nose in at any time. First thing we can do. Oh, thanks very much to Tim. Oh, this is Tim's question, by the way. Hello, Tim. With the super sticker. All right. First thing we could do is, this is number one option. Keep the apparent wind on the correct angle and let the sail out more. So let it out quite a lot. Never so much that the boom goes up against the shroud, but you can certainly let it out more, and that should just make the boat feel a little bit less twitchy. If you have the mainsail sheeted in into its optimal position, so if you look up at the mainsail, you see the telltales, and you sheet the mainsail to keep all the telltales flying straight back, the boat is going to feel much more twitchy and much more like if you took your eye off the ball for a second, you'd stick the nose in and probably go for a swim. Yes, on this point of sail, the most likely way that things are going to go wrong is you get a gust, you don't respond perhaps correctly to the gust, the bow of the boat goes into the water, boat flips over. Yeah. So if you have the mainsail a bit looser, and then what we're looking to do, so if we're in manageable sailing conditions, strong but manageable, what we're looking to do, here we go. So we're sailing along here, this boat here, and we get that gust. So, because if there were no gusts, we'd just be able to sail on 90 degrees apparent wind easy. And as we continue, we'd basically get a feel for it, and we'd just be able to sail like that. And the thing that is allowing us to sail in the stronger wind, downwind, and reducing the amount of load on the bows is by sailing fast. So 90 degrees apparent wind is going to give us the speed, but we are going to encounter variations in wind strength and direction. So we're watching our wind indicators like eagerly. Oh, Tim says 25 to 30 knot gusts. Okay, we'll come on to that in a second. So when we get a gust, what we want to do is the moment that we feel the gust, the boat is going to accelerate. When the boat accelerates, what does it do? It makes the wind indicators change direction slightly. So if I'll do it on the arrow. So as we get hit by a gust, we create more induced wind because the boat picks up speed, and the apparent wind will start coming more from in front of the boat. So how do we correct this? Well, what we need to do, and we react to this, we need to turn the boat more downwind, but at the same time, we need to ease out an armful of mainsail. So by easing out the mainsail as we bear away, what we're doing is we're taking the pressure off the bows of the boat. So very important that we ease a bit of main sheet whenever we're bearing away. Whenever you're bearing away on a boat which doesn't have a spinnaker, always ease a bit of main sheet as you turn more downwind. It basically means it's easier for the boat to turn, and it takes some of the load off the bows. If you did keep the main sheet in pretty tight, or as it was, and you go to bear away, what's happening is you're kind of fighting the pressure in the mainsail against the pressure in the rudders. So we certainly don't want to have that battle going on, because if there's any excess load in the rudders, it's going to prevent us from bearing away nicely. So ease a bit of main sheet, bear away onto the new course, and then once you're onto the new course, bring the main back in to where it was before. Because if we just keep letting main out, we're not going to be sailing fast anymore, and we're going to feel the pressure from the true wind building up, which is going to put more pressure on the bows, which is going to make it more likely that we're going to stick the nose in. All right, so that is option one, which would be, even if it was really windy, we'd still go for option one, but it depends on how big the gusts are. So if the gusts are like 5 knot gusts, increases in wind strength from 25, then perhaps this isn't going to work so well, because when we get hit by the gust, the boat hasn't got time to accelerate enough so that we're taking the load off the bows. So we're going to have to do something different. All right. So what are we going to do? Well, I'll tell you what we're not going to do is, if it gets so windy downwind that you are not feeling happy, with the 90 degrees apparent wind angle, this is going to sound obvious. You've got two choices. One, let's just go with one boat here. This is our normal angle. So choice one is to sail a little bit closer to the wind. So this would be more if, let's say, if we didn't have to get straight downwind, then turning a little bit more towards the wind with the sails still loose, that is going to take a massive amount of sting out of the boat. It's going to make the boat feel much softer, less volatile. And by turning up, so if you imagine the loading, true wind coming from behind, because that is part of what's giving us the loading, true wind coming from behind, pushing down on the leeward bow. If we come up a little bit, we've then got more of this hull, which is taking that pressure from the wind, which means we're less likely to stick the nose in. If we're keeping the mainsail and the jib a little bit loose, so they might even be flapping a little bit, then we're certainly going to feel much less power. And the closer we turn towards the wind with the sails out, yes, we're going to start depowering significantly. So although the beam reach here, half wind, is effectively the potentially most powered up point of sail, if we're on this half wind course with the sails completely loose, then we're really not going to feel that much power at all. We might, as we come up, feel like the boat is going from a pitching kind of force more to a hull flying force, but because the sails are out, it's not going to fly the hull very much. So that's kind of like your runaway, I don't like it anymore strategy. If you think, all right, we need to we basically don't want to stack it here, shove it up into the wind, and yes, by the time you get to the beam reach, the boat should become pretty placid compared to when you were on the 90 degrees apparent. Okay, so that is option 2, but that depends kind of on where you're trying to get to. If you're racing, you know, that is not going to be ideal, because like if you're racing down to, how far can we go here, down to a buoy down here, or let's have a gate, why not, down to your leeward gate down here, then heading up in the gusts like this isn't going to get you there very effectively. Well, then comes option 3, and that is going to be sailing deeper than optimal. So deeper than optimal is going to mean that our apparent wind is coming more from behind us. And yes, this goes against what I've generally been saying about the speed being the thing that is going to keep your apparent, which is going to help to stop you sticking the nose in. But by having the wind more from behind, it is really going to slow the boat down and make it feel much, much less volatile. Again, sails loose. So there, you hear a lot of people saying, oh, if it's really windy, put the boat really far downwind. Let's just move the wind rather than the boat. Put the boat really far downwind and oversheet the sail, because then the wind just passes over the sail. I say no. That is a really high risk way of sailing downwind, because if we're sailing down here almost straight downwind, if we sail up even slightly with the mainsail pinned in like that, we're suddenly going to get all of this power, and it's going to be emotional, that's for sure. So that is if you head up a bit, and if you're sailing like this, mainsail pinned in, and you come down anymore, you're not going to have the same sort of indication of being dead downwind like you would be if you were sailing normally. And the chance of an accidental jibe, like Tim was saying, the chance of this accidental jibe is pretty huge. And an oversheeted accidental jibe is going to be pretty nasty. So, yeah, I would say don't go for the oversheeting option, because what that is doing is that is slowing you down. Yes, it's slowing you down. Okay, it is slowing you down. But what's happening when we're slowing down in the high wind, downwind? All of the load is increasing. And if we put one foot out of place, we are going to get absolutely knocked flat. So to sail deeper downwind, but we still don't want these wind indicators going any further forwards than like 45 degrees forwards, because again, if we bring the boat too far downwind, and the way that you'll know that your boat is too far downwind is that the jib, let's have a jib, the jib will go from here and it will just start kind of collapsing into the middle of the boat. What that means is the jib is in the wind shadow of the mainsail and it's coming into the middle. It might even flick out onto the other side into goose winging, or sailing wing on wing, or the butterfly. Yeah, it might even come over to this side. And if that happens, so this is how you know you've gone too deep. Jib collapses into the middle. That means that the jibe is imminent. So if that happens and you're going for this option 3 method on the downwind, then just bring the boat back up to the wind just enough so that the jib fills again. All right. So those are the 3 sensible, like proper sailing options for getting downwind when it's too windy for going downwind. Now, if it really is too windy and you are, maybe you've, rather than a buoy here, this is your way back to the beach to get down to here, and it's that windy, I think it's a really good option. Let's get rid of him. I think those of you who've been around here before will know exactly what I'm going to say. So wind is blowing like here. Let's get rid of him. So in fact, almost certainly, if the best, safest option, if you're trying to get straight downwind to the beach, so you've been sailing like this, you're like, whew, oh, it's a bit much, then safest option is going to be turn the boat all the way into the wind up to a half hove to position, where you've got the sails all the way out. Just keep pushing it up till the boat stops. Let the downhaul off. That's going to stop the mainsail from flogging. And then drop the mainsail. As you drop the mainsail, make sure as it comes down, you get a knee onto the sail. Because if it's that windy, the sail could get blown off the boat really, really easily. And then roll the sail up, and you could actually use the main sheet to clip. If you've got a snap shackle on your main sheet, that is, you might not. Let's not assume that you do. But use a bit of rope, use the rope of the main sheet to tie the mainsail to your trampoline lacing, and then sail into the beach just on the jib. And that means when you get to the beach, like this is really good actually, if you're sailing a boat which has a mylar jib. So like an F18, you've got a mylar jib. The longer you spend on the beach in 30 knots of wind with the jib up, the more likely it is that your jib is going to be destroyed, because those mylar jibs do not like to be sat with when they're not sailing in a strong wind. They flap a lot. It's going to make a crazy amount of noise, and you might even see bits of sailcloth disappearing off the back of the jib. Each one of those bits of sailcloth that disappears, think, there goes $20. And more and more of this cloth just disappearing. So mainsail is already down. That means as soon as you get to the beach, turn the boat head to wind, or you don't even need to. Keep the wind behind you, and that way the jib is going to be kind of filled. Get the wheels under the boat onto the beach, then turn it into the wind, then get the jib down quick. Yes. If it's a sandy beach, or if you've got grass on the beach where you're putting the boat, a good option to save you having to pull the wheels out again and all you're doing is dropping the jib is actually get somebody to come and sit on the bow of the boat, weigh it down. That means the bow of the boat is going to be lower down, the boat's going to be stabilized, and then you can drop the jib from that position. All right, so there we go. I hope that helps Tim and everybody else who's ever felt a little bit was going on the downwind leg. Cheers. All right, just going to dive in to the live chat. So we're going back to the top. We have Levi, who hit pole position, line honours in the chat. Levi just sailed his first regatta. Formula Wave in Claremont, Florida. Very nice. My home club. First race was on Friday. Second time out sailing alone. Nice. Big tip of the hat to Adam Atherton, who I have raced against on a few occasions now. Very nice guy. Thanks to the classroom videos. Yes. And Adam's instruction, Levi was able to race and have a blast. Finished last overall. Somebody's got to be there. But the best finish was 12th out of 18 boats. Nice. And got a port start across the whole fleet. Great job, Levi. That is so good that you've been out, you've done your first regatta, and you got a 12th, which is absolutely amazing, because these guys racing Formula Wave are fanatical about it. So even though it is a great class to get into, and a great class to use as your launch pad for your racing career, but don't think because the Formula Wave is a relatively slow boat, there's anything slow about a lot of the people who are sailing them. There are some really good sailors in that fleet. But what is really nice in fleets like that is everybody is so welcoming and helpful to new sailors in the fleet. So I'm sure you were feeling some of that love. And Levi did lead the fleet to the first mark. Nice. Scary as heck. Nice. Great stuff. And in a few races, he was feeling competitive. Nice. All right. Leland Lee is on board. Thanks for that, Levi, for sharing your experience. And everybody can get involved with the classroom series. Although I think a lot of the people watching live perhaps are already in. All right. So Leland Lee in Clearwater, Florida is on board. Channel member Jochen is on board. Greetings. All right. And we've said hello to Bernhard and Scott. Mr. Tony KP is with us in Ebeltoft, Denmark. Oh, yeah. And Scott says, nice shirt. Yes, I think so. It's my favorite one at the moment. Brand new for 2026. TotalJoyrider.com. Sorry about the creases. I had it packed in my suitcase and I was looking for what to wear. Yeah, just got back from Egypt. And I believe just entering with a super sticker, Hussein is with us, who I was sailing with in Egypt. What a great time that was. and the wind, I would have to say, absolutely delivered the goods. I think it was just the first day was a little bit light for the whole day, but every other day we had 14, 15 knots, absolutely clear paradise water, beautiful sandy beach. Sunshine was a little bit chilly, but sunshine, spray top. That is what you need. A little bit chilly, but very nice week of 16 sailing with Hussein and Tariq on the Gulf of Suez, Egypt. Very nice. All right. So Oliver says, greetings to everybody, and please hit the like button. Yeah, that's sound advice there from Oliver in Germany. Thanks for that. All right, we have got Ryan, channel member Ryan, in Maui. Good morning, Joyriders. Egypt sounds amazing. It wasn't the Mediterranean side or the Red Sea side, or it certainly wasn't the Nile River. We were on the Gulf of Suez, which is about 2 hours to the east, kind of southeast of Cairo. So really handy spot to hit from the airport. Not very long to get there at all. All right, Oliver says ease the jib too. All right, so on the downwind stuff, yes, easing the jib is certainly going to help. We've got Hans on board. Guten Tag, Hans. Hans, who we would usually see on the Wildwind Beach. I'm sure Hans is revving up for that right now. Yeah, so Oliver says ease the jib before bearing away. Yes, that is going to help. But the main thing is easing the main before or as you bear away. That is going to take the load off the bows. All right, Bernhard in Austria says, very interesting. The downwind speeding messes it up once and stuck in opening too much. Yes, I'm not quite sure what you're saying there, but yes, when it's that windy, it can soon feel like it's getting a bit out of control. So if at any point you really do feel like you're just sat on a runaway train and you don't know when it's going to stop, then don't go dead downwind because you're too close to the jibe. Go towards dead downwind, and she's certainly going to calm down a lot. And actually, this is what I hadn't mentioned, is what if you're sailing along nicely and you get hit by a gust, and immediately before you have a chance to react, the bows start to go down. If you get to that position, if you try bearing away from there, what that is actually going to do is drive the bows down harder. And this is assuming you've still got any rudders in the water. So if you do get a really sharp, aggressive gust that just puts your bows in immediately, the only thing you can do is absolutely push the rudders across, absolutely push them pretty hard. And what that will do is it will take the load off the bows and put it more into a hull flying load, which with the sails out as you've had them is going to be more likely that you will save it. There we go. Okay, so Christian is on board in Canada. He says, today's my tryout for the race to Alaska, 50 nautical miles trial. Wish me luck. Yes, I think everybody joins me in saying good luck, Christian. We believe in you, and keep it safe, and watch out on the downwind, not stick the nose in. I think on a long race like that, don't push 110% all of the time. Only push when it's available. That's pretty vague advice, but keep it safe. I think that's the main thing. All right. Okay, yeah, a lot of people wishing Christian luck there. Okay, so Levi says, I have a plastic race weekend question, plastic being on the Hobie wave. How do I get better at determining the ley line to the upwind mark to avoid the extra tack? I think plastic race works just as well as post race, by the way. Yeah, so this is a very good question. How to determine the ley line. Now, for those of you who don't know, the ley line, we're talking about the windward mark, and what the ley line is. Oh, thanks very much, Christian, for the super sticker. And once again, good luck. And ley line's not quite so important when sailing a 50 nautical mile race in an open sea. But here we are on the course. So what we would have here is a line, a ley line, and what this is this is the line that we need to cross so that when we tack, we can get around the buoy. Okay, so where is this line? Generally, it would be just like if we're sailing upwind on port tack, like here, when we tack, we end up pretty much at 90 degrees. So when you're coming up to the buoy, we're going to keep looking up towards it and having a look. Is that 90 degrees yet? No. Perhaps we get to here, pretty close, but we have a look. Is that 90 degrees? No. And what we're looking to do is to get beyond 90 degrees so that when we tack, we are guaranteed that we can get around the buoy. Now, how can we help this to be successful? First thing we can do is, if there's time, before you start the race, to actually sail upwind a bit. And if you haven't got time to sail all the way to the windward mark, see if there's something else that you can choose. Like maybe, let's have another boat. Maybe you're sailing here and you can see on the shore there's a church. So if you're sailing up here and you can see that there's a church on the shore, think, okay, I'm going to eye up 90 degrees. Two ways of eyeing up 90 degrees. Just imagine your front beam continues and see where that ends up. Or the other way you could do it, if you've got pretty normal mobility, we're going this way. If you look over your back shoulder and you can see out of the corner of your eye the objective that you're trying to get to, that indicates to you that you've gone beyond 90 degrees. But you might not be sailing in a boat that hits 90 degrees when it tacks. Like the Formula Wave, I don't believe it's a particularly high pointing boat. So you think, right, that is bang on 90 degrees. So tack there and then see what direction you're pointing in. See if, yes, 90 degrees was bang on. You might be, if you're sailing a boat with dagger boards, you might actually see, oh, we're going to pass well in front of that. So 90 degrees wasn't the angle. Or if you see that you're not going to make it, that tells you that you need to go beyond 90 degrees. So we can do a little bit of fact finding before the race. Important is before you go for the tack, make sure, or before you go for judging 90 degrees, make sure you are sailing on your proper upwind course. 3 modes you might be using on the upwind. normal, you might be sailing high, so that's high and slow, or which we'd call pointing, or you might be sailing low and fast, which we call footing. So you want to be sailing on your normal upwind course, because if you're not doing that, then you really don't know what is going on. You need to have that as your control to know what your starting point is. Okay. And then once you've gained that information, you should know how far to the buoy you need to go before you can tack. Now, a good trick you can do if you're not winning the race is, if there's other boats that have already tacked for the buoy, as you sail up here, you can basically look up through that boat there and look at that boat and think, is that boat going to make it around the buoy? And if the answer is yes, then making sure you're not going to tack and be immediately into dirty wind. Like if there's another boat here, you're going to get dirty wind off him. I'll come back to that in a second. But if that boat isn't there, then yes, tack behind him and you know you can make it round the buoy. Now, dirty wind. So this boat is between the wind and us. We are sea. So what is that going to do to us when we tack? If we're in his dirty wind, what it's going to mean is we're not going to be able to sail as close to the wind, which might mean, although this guy can make it round because his wind is unaffected, we're affected by him. We'll be affected by him a bit as well. We're not going to be able to sail very close to the wind at all. So we probably will have to sail a bit further. There we go. Hope that helps. Cheers. Very good. All right, we continue. Okay. Yeah, Tim says, back to the downwind question. It was survival conditions getting back to the downwind dock. It was a bit much. Yes, certainly sounds like it. Okay, we've got RJ Fleet on board. Hello. Great to have you with us. He's tuning in from warming southwest Minnesota. The lakes have thawed, but the water is extremely cold. I was looking at the ocean springs, Hobie 16 open, and discovered the cats have to be 2004 and newer. Yes. Yeah, bit of a shame they put that in, but yeah, and yeah, bit of a shame. If you have got an older Hobie 16 and you're feeling like you would love to have been at that event, but you can't, there are, I know it doesn't help, but there are, it might help. There are the availability of some charter boats, which you can use, or there is also the Hilton Head 51st anniversary regatta in Hilton Head, South Carolina, USA, 1 month later. And yes, I'm going to be there. And yes, it is going to be the most fun that you've ever experienced in a sailing regatta context. So if you can't make it to the International Regatta in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, get to Hilton Head, because even though there might not be quite as many boats, although I think the word has been spreading and everybody is going to go to Hilton Head. It's going to be so much fun. Last year's race was the funnest regatta I've ever attended in my life. No word of an exaggeration there. All right. So Hussein says, can't attend the whole live session. Just saying hello and thanks so much for the great coaching. Was fantastic by all means. It was great to be there, and thanks for bringing me out to Egypt for some coaching. Yes, it's true. If you want me sat on your boat with you to help you with your sailing, it is possible. I can come to where you sail and coach you on your boat. Not only that, you could come here to Vasiliki, Lefkas, Greece, and I could coach you on one of my boats. Or third option is maybe there's a regatta that you've been looking at and you're like, I would love to do that, but I just don't feel confident to do it. Then I could come sit on your boat. Let's not say sit on your boat. I could come and crew for you or steer for you in that regatta, getting you that foot in the door regatta experience, so that then the next regatta that comes up, you will feel very confident to go and get involved. So if that sounds good to you, get in touch soon, because I'm already fully booked for April and May, and September as well, fully booked. So there's a few months left in the summer. Of course, if you're in Australia, then let's wait until November, December, and then I'll come down. Lovely old job. All right, very nice. But do get in touch if you fancy some of that. All right, David is on board. Nice to have you with us, David. Oh, and then we got Random in Seattle on board, where it's currently actually snowing, which isn't typical for the time of year. He's just picked up his sail and trampoline from the sailmaker after some repairs. Yes, and I do believe that the next question we've got is actually from Random in Seattle, channel member who has been studying the modules very closely, which I appreciate. There's now 18 modules in the classroom series. For those of you who are waiting for number 19, because I was in Egypt this week, yes, it's a bit late. Apologies for that. But it will be coming pretty soon. But only if you can only complain about it being late if you have completed every single other module so far and taken notes, and you don't feel like you could get more out of it by watching it again. But yes, 2 more modules to come, and then that is where we're going to park it for now. But then what I'm going to be doing is adding to the existing modules where I feel it would help. So we were talking about the what was it called, reading the wind module when we're in Egypt, and one thing that we didn't talk about was, what about if you are having to sail and you've got absolutely no information on the boat, no telltales, no wind indicators? How would you do that? Oh, yes. So we're going to add an extra chapter to the reading the wind module on that. And then we're not going to stop at 20 modules. Oh, no. No, as I feel that there are more worthy topics that we could put a module on, then I will put another module in there, and everybody who has access at the moment will have access to any future modules as well. Very good. All right. Better get on with answering a question then. All right. So Random in Seattle, this is this question, we could go on for some time with this, but we're talking about wind effects on a lake. So we're talking about an extremely gusty, shifty lake sailing environment and how to deal with it. So we're going to change the scale slightly. So let's say here is our lake, and let's just do that just to make it look like, yes, that is definitely a lake. And then maybe we've got some sort of pretty weird looking mountains up here. We've got trees here. Maybe there's a sort of flat at this end, mountains at this end, Oh yeah, yeah, we're really creating a diverse place here. And then maybe this is where we launch from. I think that seems pretty likely. And then trees getting smaller as we go here. And then maybe there's a small settlement here. By the way, in the classroom series, I'd like to say that the drawings are of a higher quality because I feel that I have more time in which to do them. All right. So in this situation, the wind is going to be quite possibly most days a mess. What wind direction is the wind going to be the least of a mess? It will actually be when the wind is blowing from the unobstructed direction. So here, let's say we are facing north here. So here, when the wind is in the east, then that is when the wind is going to be least affected. But let's just look at this easterly wind first. What are we going to get? A fairly, let's say a fairly good solid band of wind down here, but not all the way across, because when the wind is blowing across the lake, it has to be able to go somewhere. So we've got a bit of a mountain range here at the west side of the lake. So as the wind gets a distance, let's say 2/3 of the way across, this air is going to have to start looking at how it's going to pass over the top of the mountains. So it's probably going to lift here, meaning that the wind here, so this is a really nice solid bit of wind in the middle. And as we get here, the wind is going to be much more turbulent, lighter, and confusing wind directions. Good so far? I hope so. In here, close to the forested edge, what's going to be happening here? Well, these trees are, of course, going to be interrupting, interfering with the wind. So we're going to get a sort of reasonably hellishly swirly bit of wind in here. These buildings as well, swirly. So in fact, the first challenge that we're going to hit is when we put our boat in the water, and let's say for scale, there's the boat there. When we put the boat in the water, immediately we're going to be launching into some swirly stuff, and we're going to be wanting to keep our eyes and our attention towards the east, because once we clear these obstructions, we're going to get quite an increase in wind strength, and it's going to become much more solid. So sailing out into the lake, and we're going to get here, wind's going to become solid. And then because of the scale of which I've drawn this, it means we're going to have a fairly decent bit of lake where the wind is blowing fairly consistently in one direction. Yeah. And what's going to happen with the chop? So depending on the scale of this, but let's say that we could actually say that like this, if this was one of the Italian lakes, like Lake Garda, one the most famous, what we have is very flat, hot at this end, very mountainous, cold at this end, which creates a whole system of wind, which means first thing in the morning, this is lifted, the air is lifted up here because it's hot. It gets drawn up to the north, drops down, and then gets drawn back down the lake. So you get very strong northerly winds in the morning. And then in the afternoon, you get more of a sea breeze from the south. And what happens is the closer we get to the source, the smaller the waves are going to be, or chop. And then as we go along the lake, this chop is going to get much bigger. So there we go. That is the easterly wind. All right, we're just going to do one more wind direction on the lake, and then we're going to move on because we've got quite a few preloaded questions to go through. All right, so which wind direction do we fancy? I think let's go for something like this, a northerly wind. Ooh, God, brutal. Yeah, this northerly wind is going to be, or even, let's go one better. Let's go for this northwesterly kind of wind. And it's coming from quite high up over the top of the mountains. So close in, it's quite likely it's not going to be, let's say there's no dramatic thermal effects here as well. So it's going to be shifty here. And what is going to happen is at some point, because this air has been quite high up because the mountains have pushed this moving channel of air up, at some point it's going to drop down, maybe here. And then when it drops down, it's going to be going in a number of different directions. Kind of like if something is coming down from a great height, like my usual analogy is dropping the tomato. So we're dropping a tomato in the middle of the lake, and it's not all going to go in one direction. It's going to kind of spread out like that. And that is what's going to happen here. Now, because we're quite flat on this side, this wind is then just going to be able to continue blowing there. The wind through the trees is going to be very disturbed, but perhaps by the time we get over here, there'll be some sort of direction in it. But what can we do to make sailing in these sort of conditions, let's just say, more enjoyable? We can just be looking at the water in our whole sailing area, looking for the most consistency in the texture and the color of the water. So if there's a lot of consistency in the color and the texture of the water, that most likely means that we've got the biggest patch of good wind to sail in. I don't know if that helps or if that's just more of a explanation of what might be happening on your lake there, but there we go. We are going to move on. Oh, in fact, we are almost at 1 hour now in the live Q&A. Thanks for still being here, those of you who are still here. All right, next question. And this one comes from Andres, who is in Chile. Yes, we are hitting the corners of the world. And he sails a Nacra 5.5. Okay, and says, all right, trying to get more speed out of the Nacra 5.5, hit about 17 knots. Wind was maybe 15 knots and more. Sails are pretty old. That could be an issue slowing him down, maybe. But also, we were 3 on board. All right, so there is clue number 1. Why couldn't we sail quicker? The amount of weight that you put on the boat is really going to affect your potential top speed. As you may know, let's not assume anything. The way to get your boat sailing as fast as possible is to, well, you might even start on an upwind point of sail. Let's start over here. On an upwind point of sail, get out on the trapeze. If you're trapezing, get settled, get locked in, and then when you're ready to take it down the mine shaft for some speed, we're then going to start bearing away. To avoid digging the nose in, what are we going to do? Yes, we're going to ease the main sheet, definitely, maybe ease the jib a bit as well. And we're going to bear away. And what are we trying to do as we bear away? We're trying to keep, where is this? This is just here. We're trying to keep our windward hull out of the water, because that is going to make a massive difference to the amount of friction on the boat and the amount of lift that we're going to be generating from the dagger boards and the rudders on the leeward side. If you think about, the modern foiling boats, they've got, or even the boats with curved foils like this, or a boat which has a foil like this, like the Nacra 20 FCS. The bit of the foil that makes the boat lift up out of the water is when you get that flat edge going under the water, with it tilted back slightly, then the water gets underneath that and it effectively starts planing underwater like a windsurf board would on top of the water. But this is planing under the water. So with the curved foil, how is that providing lift? Because we can be flying the hull and then we've got this flat section which is giving us that lift. So if we're lifting the hull slightly here, we're starting to get the same sort of effect from the foils, the rudders and the dagger boards. Well, the leeward rudder and dagger board, even on a conventional old-fashioned boat with straight, sorry to call them old-fashioned, I think these boats with straight foils are the future. Yes. So we're getting lift off the foils on these boats. Yes. So we do want to be lifting the hull. That's going to give us more lift, which is going to lift the hull, even though it's ever so slightly, it's going to lift the hull slightly, which means less drag, more potential speed. Okay, number one. Number two, if you've got dagger boards like on the Nacra 5.5, make sure you have got them lifted to about halfway. If you're going for a fairly juicy send in some good wind, you don't want to have the full dagger board down, because it's only going to be effective up to a certain level, which would be about halfway. And anything more than that is just going to be creating drag. And also it might even start creating turbulence in the water, which is then going to affect the flow of water over your rudder as well. So lift the dagger boards halfway. And then if you've got the hull up here on the half wind and you've got enough power to lift the hull up more than you want it, and all you want it is so that this hull is never touching the water. That's all. If you've got enough wind to go higher, then what can we do? Take it down the mine shaft. So if we can get to this position with the hull in the air, then we are cooking. That is definitely mode cook. Yeah, so that is the bottom line of how we're going to achieve that top speed. So by putting a third person on the boat, I know it's fun to sail with more people. Everybody wants to come for a burn. But if you're going for a high speed, like if the wind is a little bit light to lift the hull, if you're sailing the boat single-handed, then you're going to get a higher speed in less wind, because you've got less weight on the boat, which is going to allow the boat to have this kind of lifted effect much earlier with less wind. And the same goes for the difference between 2 and 3 people on the boat. Even when it's absolutely nukingly windy, if you've got more than, like, I'd say maximum you'd want would be about, for really high speed, any more than 220 kilos on the boat, and then you're going to yeah, it's going to be, you're going to start, that weight is not going to be benefiting you after that, unless it is absolutely howling and you can handle the boat in that much wind. All right, what's next in the story? All right, Andrews says, not sure if I was handling the twist correctly. I normally release the main sheet to see the upper leech telltale fly or close, but it happens with a lot of twist. And if I pull again, the boat seems to sail faster. I think if the boat seems to sail faster, you must be doing it right. Unfortunately, this idea came a bit late. Yeah, so with your mainsail, let's get a conventional mainsail. Yeah, if all of your telltales are flying, let's say you've got 4 leech telltales, if they're all flying, this does indicate to you that the sail is not oversheeted. So what does that suggest? Try sheeting it in a bit more. With the leech telltales on the mainsail, it does work a lot more like how you would trim a spinnaker. So you sheet in, you sheet in. If they're all still flying, you sheet in a bit more. If one of them disappears, you sheet out a little bit just until it flicks back. Then you sheet in again until it disappears. Then you sheet out till it comes back. So you're really trimming the sail as much as you can. I'd say with 3 people on the boat, it's great to put the third person to work and get them employed as full-time main sheet trimmer, where they're just staring at the leech of the mainsail on the trampoline, feet under the tow strap, locked in. You're steering the boat on the trapeze. First mate is on the trapeze trimming the jib, and who would the bosun, coxswain would be on, or wing trimmer would be on the trampoline looking at the mainsail, trimming it all of the time, just working it against these leech telltales. If it's so windy that you can never pull the sail in to the point where your bottom telltale disappears, then first thing, more downhaul. Second thing, perhaps drop the traveller out a little bit, and then you can sail with the leech much tighter. But if it's getting to the wind strength where you have to travel out, these bad boys are just going to be flying all the time because you haven't got the amount of weight to counterbalance the rig on that point of sail and have it so that it's sheeted in so much that these guys are going to disappear. All you can do there is sheet it in as much as you can. Look at the sail, try to have it so that the leech looks like it's fairly straight. There we go. I'm going to park that there and continue. What else have we got in the live chat? Just nothing. It's all gone a bit quiet in the live chat. I think that's because the level of information here is we're really hitting the spot here. All right. And except Boris has just arrived, channel member Boris in Florida. Great to have you with us, Boris. Bernhard says, great topics. Thank you very much, Bernhard. All right. Next one is from Matt, who I believe is in Baltimore, USA, Hobie 16 sailor, but it seems that Matt has got hold of a Hobie 14. All right. So I'm just going to tidy up a little bit before we begin on the next question. And in fact, at this time, what can we plug? Let's plug something. Sunday, boat explainer video. And as luck would have it, we were talking about the Formula Wave earlier. Yes, it's going to be the Formula Wave boat explainer video. Yes, it is. So there we go. Now, a boat explainer video I'd like to do, and if anybody can get me started on this with what I'd like is really good drone footage. I want to do the Dart 18. I used to sail a Dart 18, but before digital photography was invented, or video was so accessible. And the Dart 18 is one of the most widely raced boats in Northern Europe. So I think it would be very fitting to do a boat explainer video on the Dart 18. So if anybody is sitting on Dart 18 footage, then yes, get it to me, and we'll put the boat explainer video together for that. Very nice. What else deserves a plug? The speed stick. Yes, this week saw the launch of the 2026 Global Speed Stick competition. It's available to look at the leaderboard, the runners and riders, on totaljoyrider.com, and as well as the 2026 leaderboard that is up there. You can also see on there the 2025 leaderboard, and on the 25 leaderboard, it's got some drop down menus where if you're not happy with your position on the leaderboard, use the drop down menus until you're happy with it. So let's say, where were you sailing? I was sailing in, I'm trying to think of where we might have been sailing. I was sailing in the Philippines. Very nice. So use the drop down menu, and perhaps you're 50th overall. Use the drop down menu, select the country. It would then give you all of the entries from that country and give you your ranking for your country. Where do you rank in the Philippines? Number 1. Yes. And that's the one you're going to share with your friends, of course. All right. Thanks very much to Boris for jumping in with the super sticker, keeping the Q&A ad-free, and a great way of showing that you like the way that I pause between words, which, sorry, it's just a habit I've seemed to have got into. Yeah, so great way of showing that you appreciate the stuff that's coming out as well. And yeah, and if you're wondering when are the regular videos on Joyrider TV going to be starting, yeah, we've hit a bit of a delay. All right, this isn't just going for a sympathy vote, but on Wednesday this week, I've got to go to hospital for surgery. I'm getting old. Yeah. Got to go to hospital for surgery, which means that I'm not going to be getting back out on the water for a little while, not until probably the end of April. So there will be a bit of a delay to the regular videos for that reason. Poor Joe. All right. So Matt's question about the Hobie 14. All right. How would you repair? It's a repair question. A bridle wire anchor bolt pulling out of the bow on the Hobie 14. All right. Let's just look at that so far. Right. So the way that it is on the Hobie 14, I'm not sure how it is on the really old 14s, but on most of the 14s that I've been involved with, there's the bow. It's not a bad bow. Maybe I made the gun a little bit too big. And then what you have is you actually have a screw thread that goes, it's not my best screw thread there. Screw thread going into the hull where the bolt goes into, which holds the bow tang. There's the bow tang. I've made it really big, and there's the bolt there that goes into there. So what I'm guessing with the boat that Matt has got is that there's something, maybe the bolt has snapped off inside the thread, or perhaps the thread has just gone. So if it seems that the thread has gone, first thing to do would be, I would think, to see if you could put a new thread into this cavity. What I would assume is inside there, having never actually cut a Hobie 14 open, would be like a metal block, fiberglass to the inside of the bow, and that metal block has got a thread cut into it. So perhaps take your tap and die set and see if you can re-tap that metal block. I don't know if this terminology is correct, by the way, and put a new thread into the metal block. If you can do that and it will accept the new bolt, great, job done. Okay, but let's assume you can't do that for some reason. So what would be the next thing that we could do? Oh yeah, sorry, I'm just seeing Dave 1082 is in the live chat, who said, I sailed a Hobie 14. There were 4 bolts holding the tang on for the bridle wires. Nice. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I do remember seeing some like that actually, where there's 4, but I think on some of the boats there's just 1 bolt going in like this. But either way, if you can't get the thread working for however it is meant to be attached, the major surgery approach, which might be necessary, would be, this is going to sound quite brutal, is we're going to cut a hand size hole in the inside of the hull. So a hole about the size of your hand. So you get your hand in there, and if you use a proper hole cutter, I would give it to a boat builder myself, but use a proper hole cutting thing so it cuts a perfect circle out of there. This is going to make actually closing the hole much easier afterwards. Get a hand size hole in the inside of the hull, because the inside of the hull doesn't have as much load on it as the outside of the hull when you're sending it in wind. You could then access the inside of this area, and then you could either put a nut or 2 nuts onto the bolt. But whatever you're doing to fix this situation, remember that you're going to be closing this hole permanently, so make it a permanent fix. That is as far as I'm going to go with that one, because this sort of stuff isn't my specialist topic, but that is what we've done in the past at Wildwind Sailing Holidays. But somebody much more experienced with these sort of repairs did that than me. There we are. All right, back into the live chat. We've got Justin. Yes, Justin. On board South Padre Island, Texas. All right. Any videos of the sailing in Egypt? Yes. They're coming. Yeah, I just got back yesterday. And to be honest, I've just been trying to get organized back to real life. So when would be the first one? Hopefully I've got to do, you see, also I've got to do this week's module for the classroom series as well. There's a lot on in the Joyrider TV studio, but there will be, I think after I've been to hospital, and if I'm able to operate the computer in my rehabilitative state, then yes, I'll be able to get editing and get some of this Egyptian footage out there fairly soon. Thanks for asking. Very good. All right, next preloaded question. Any other questions in the live chat, if they could be accompanied by a super sticker, just to show that you care. All right, Justin says, yeah, the Sailing by the Telltales module, I think it was called Reading the Wind module, was super helpful, says Justin. Nice one. All right, Boris says, how can I send you pictures and videos? I will be finishing the repair and gel coat of one of the 16s, and it might help or inspire someone on the fence doing it. Yes, this sounds like we are getting close to the next episode of Show Us Your Cat. Yeah, for those, Show Us Your Cat has taken a bit of a back seat in the last year or two. But in the earlier days of Joyrider TV, there was an episode of Show Us Your Cat every single week. And I think in total, there are something like 140 episodes of Show Us Your Cat. And what Boris is talking about here is exactly what Show Us Your Cat was for. It was for showing, I think some of the most memorable episodes were showing the before and after and the process of the restoration of some boats. So the perfect ones were like, this was the boat when I found it, like maybe a boat in a ditch, it's green, looks terrible, there's a tree fallen down on it, trampoline is destroyed. Okay, and then the process, cleaning the boat, getting the hulls looking nice, getting the new trampoline. If we're not racing, I'd go to Salt City Sailing. Best price value trampolines, I think, in the world. I wouldn't be surprised. Need new sails. I would go to, let's see, have I got the right koozie? Yes, I would go to Whirlwind Sails, San Diego. Definitely my favorite choice of aftermarket sails, non-original. You can't do the big events with Whirlwinds on the 16, but they are the best that you can get, I think. And then we have the specific repairs in the video, like what Boris is talking about. And then we have the finishing process. And then we have to finish off with, we have the boat being launched, all shiny, and then some sailing footage and a story to go with it. How good would that be? Let's bring it back. Why did Show Us Your Cat stop? It was because people stopped showing their cats. Yeah. As soon as I've got 3 cats to show in Show Us Your Cat, I'll put together the next episode. Of course, with the module series, there's only 2 modules left to go. So after I've done that, then Show Us Your Cat could return. Oh, yes. And the boat explainer videos as well. But I think once I'm back on the water, we're going to put a pause on all of these, let's call them the winter activities. And we're going to start focusing on the action outdoors. Been sat in the studio for too long now. Don't even know what a tree looks like anymore. Yes. All right. So there we go. And how do you get the stuff to me? All right. As we're talking about it, let's finish the process. So what I would like from you would be an email with just the description, like the story of what the boat is that you're showing us, where it is that you sail, perhaps when you got the boat, the condition of the boat when you got it, work that you've had to do to the boat just to make it float, work that you've done to the boat to make it look nice, any parts that you've had to source for the boat, and then what you like to do with the boat now that it's finished. So with this Show Us Your Cat, it's nice to do it to show the cat after it's finished, I think, show the full story. And then what you like to do with it. Maybe you like to go fishing. Maybe you like to go on camping trips, that sort of thing. Maybe you like to do competitions. Who do you like to sail with? Make sure anybody that is in any video footage, you say who it is, because otherwise they're going to be very upset when it's like, and here's Boris with somebody else sailing on the 16 newly restored. Yeah, so things like that. More information you can add, the better. Puts the story together. If you would like to record video, the voiceover description, then you're very welcome to. Otherwise, just give me the story and I will narrate your boat's story. Okay, so email me that, totaljoyrider@icloud.com. You'll find my email address all over the place. And for any footage and video and photos, sorry, then I use, for stuff that's too big to email, WeTransfer.com, that you can send up to 2 gigabytes, might be 3 now at a time, and you just send video like that. Might be 4 different transfers that you have to do if there's a lot there. And then what I'm aiming for with each boat is to have a segment of between 4 and 6 minutes for each boat that we feature, to keep it interesting, lively. But of course, if there's a lot going on, we'll make it a bit longer. There we go. Thanks, Boris, for potentially being the one who brings back Show Us Your Cat. I know some people have sent me some stuff a while ago, but here we go. All right, last question of the session. This comes from Leo, who I believe Leo sails a Tornado. And Leo says, what is the best moment to tack? Is it in or is it after the gust? In the gust, you will slow down more. If when you tack, you'll lose more ground, which is absolutely true. So let's when is a tack the most expensive? And what we're talking about in terms of expensive is racing. So if how would this actually work? Like this. So 2 boats coming along like this. So in light winds, when you tack, yes, the tack is going to take longer, but the distance that this boat is going to get away from you when you tack is going to be much less. So a light winds, extra tacks. If this extra tack means that you get into better wind sooner, so when we're trying to choose our upwind strategy in a race, one of the major parts of it is you want to be on the boat that is sailing in the stronger wind for the most of the time compared to everyone else. If you're sailing in stronger wind more often, you are going to get to the windward mark more quickly, because on a catamaran, more wind equals more boat speed. Yes, this is probably the case on slow boats, monohulls as well, but the difference isn't quite as much as a percentage. So get into the stronger wind sooner. In the heavy wind, extra tacks are more expensive. Why? Because the boats are sailing quicker, which means that if you're doing an extra 2 tacks, like if you've both been sailing away and you've tacked once, he's going to get away that far, and then you've tacked back again, he's going to be up here by now. So you really have to consider the extra tacks when it's a strong wind. Sort of rounding everything up is, what about when you're going for the ley line in a strong wind? Like, let's say you're going for the ley line and you're going a long way out. Maybe you're hitting the corner. So you're doing this right-hand side of the course in one, which makes it really quite difficult to know if you can get around the buoy, because the wind, you know, granted, the wind might be like that there, but over here a bit more, the wind might have come round, which means, yes, you're tacking for that 90 degrees here, like we talked about earlier. But if the wind changes as you come over, you're no longer going to be able to make it. What can we do? Well, if it's windy, much, much safer is to go effectively too far. Why is this? Because on a catamaran, if you've sailed too far, yes, you've sailed more distance, but when you bear away slightly, like what I would do is sail high up here, even though the buoy is down here, we sail high up here, assuming that the wind might actually change direction, And then when the wind changes direction, that means, yes, we can make it round. If the wind doesn't change direction, what does that mean? We can bear away. And on a catamaran, as I'd like to think you know, when you bear away, the increase in speed is significant. So we actually don't lose very much by going too far when it's windy. When it's light wind, we do lose by going too far because we don't gain as much speed as a percentage increase if we bear away. So much better to try to hit the ley line as close as we can. And as I said, 2 tacks in the light wind isn't as expensive as 2 tacks in the heavy wind. Now, when it comes to when should we tack, if there's a gust, let's say this is our gust. Let's say we're coming across like this. This gust is coming down as we come across. What we want to avoid, if we're still trying to get up here, is to actually sail out of the gust completely. You might, a lot of the time, a good strategy is when you see the gust coming towards you, because not only is the gust more wind, it's also going to have with it a change in wind direction as well. So where's another arrow? So the wind is going to be kind of like this with the gust. So when you see the gust coming down, just as you enter it, that's the best time to tack, because you then will pick up a lift on the other tack, which will get you to where it is you want to go. Second choice would be to sail into the gust, have a lovely time in the gust, but then before you sail out of the gust, where the wind is going to start lifting you on this tack, we don't really want the lift on this tack, because a lift on this tack is a header on the other tack. Hope everybody's with me. I'm just trying to wrap this up. Got to go for dinner. So before we get right to the edge of this gust, and you should be able to see where the gust stops by that difference in texture on the water. Before we get to the other side, then we tack. And as we go back across the gust, we'll get lifted and boom, there we go. So don't sail out of the gust completely before you tack, because that is not going to do you much good. But of course, it does depend on where you're going. Most important thing. So if we're going over here, that's going to give quite a different complexion, because we've only got one way we can go. And that's the harsh truth of it. Sometimes there is only one way you can go. Thanks for coming along, everybody. Great to see so many channel members in the live chat. Thanks for all the super stickers and your support. Don't forget to hit the like button before you leave. And I'll be back on Sunday with the Boat Explainer Formula Wave. Get involved. Show us your cat. Yes, it's coming back. Thank you, Boris. The speed stick. Get on the speed stick if you're getting out sailing. You know what to do. If you don't, go to the website, totaljoyrider.com, hit the speed stick. Everything is explained there. All right. Thanks very much. Have a great weekend and stay safe out there. Thank you.